Report date solar cycle 7249, Orient Standard Time. Classification military assessment first contact. Submitted by Grand Observer Raxon Prell. Status highly confidential. Let me start by saying that I, Grand Observer Raxon Prell of the Orient Collective, have never been so amused and bewildered by any species in my 3 centuries of exploration. These humans, these peculiar bipedal creatures on the third rock from their unremarkable sun, are perhaps the most ridiculously inefficient beings we have ever encountered. When our quantum sensors first detected their primitive radio waves bouncing around their atmosphere, we actually had to double-check our equipment. Surely Commander Senna Brightclaw said, peering at the readings with all 4 of her eyes, this must be some sort of cosmic joke. But no, there they were, broadcasting their existence to the entire galaxy with the technological equivalent of banging rocks together. Their vehicles? They still roll on round pieces of rubber. Can you believe it? They burn fossilized organic matter to power these wheeled contraptions, pumping their atmosphere full of carbon dioxide in the process. When I shared this observation with Science Officer Lunar Vex, she laughed so hard she nearly shed her outer membrane. But wait, it gets better. Their primary method of global communication relies on physical cables running through their oceans, cables, underwater. We spent 3 solar rotations debating whether they were actually using these for communication or if they were some sort of primitive art installation. Their military capabilities? Now that's where the real comedy begins. They still use projectile weapons that rely on chemical explosions to launch tiny pieces of metal. Our preliminary scans showed no energy shields, no quantum arrays, not even basic neural interfaces. Just mechanical devices operated by manual input, and this is the best part they need to sleep for approximately 1/3 of their planetary rotation. This will be the easiest acquisition in Orient history, Admiral Zenith Starweaver declared during our first tactical briefing. Their most advanced aircraft can barely break the sound barrier. Their spacecraft, they haven't even established a permanent settlement on their own moon. The more we observed, the more our confidence grew. Their societies are fragmented into nearly 200 separate political entities, each with their own military forces and competing interests. Their global economy runs on digital numbers that only have value because they collectively agree they do. They spend enormous resources on entertainment, creating fictional scenarios for their own amusement. One particularly amusing discovery was their obsession with imagining alien invasions. They've produced countless dramatizations of extraterrestrial contact, most of which hilariously depict them somehow prevailing against advanced civilizations. Science Officer Lunar Vex suggested we broadcast these movies across the Orient network as comedy entertainment. Their defensive capabilities are laughably primitive. Our stealth ships easily penetrated their atmosphere, and their most sophisticated detection systems couldn't even spot our scout vessels. During one observation mission, we accidentally flew right through one of their military exercises. They mistook us for something they call weather balloons, apparently a common explanation for anything they can't identify in their skies. I must note, though, one peculiar observation that Commander Senna Brightclaw made during our final assessment meeting. They seem almost suspiciously unprepared, she said, mandibles twitching thoughtfully. As if they're either completely oblivious to the dangers of space, or she didn't finish that sentence, and honestly, none of us gave it much thought at the time. The High Command has authorized our acquisition fleet to proceed with the standard protocol for primitive worlds. Our calculations suggest it should take approximately 1 of their weeks to establish complete control over their major population centers. Their only satellite defense network appears to be focused on tracking space debris and weather patterns. In my 3 centuries of service to the Orient Collective, I have never encountered a species so ripe for conquest. They practically invite it with their technological inadequacies and fractured global politics. If I didn't know better, I'd say they're almost asking to be conquered and brought into the enlightened fold of our civilization. End report segment Grand Observer Raxon Prell. Addendum recommend immediate commencement of acquisition operations. These humans won't even know what hit them. Personal note, I've already started drafting my acceptance speech for the Galactic Excellence in Expansion Award. This might be the easiest commendation I've ever earned. Emergency update to High Command. From Grand Observer Raxon Prell. Subject: unexpected developments. Priority level maximum. I regret to inform the High Command that our initial assessment of human defensive capabilities may have been slightly underestimated. And by slightly, I mean catastrophically wrong. The first wave of our invasion went exactly as planned. We positioned our capital ships in geosynchronous orbit above their major cities. Our stealth technology worked perfectly. Their primitive radar systems didn't detect a thing. Admiral Zenith Starweaver even ordered the crew to record the moment for our victory archives. Then everything went sideways. The moment our ships decloaked, we expected panic, confusion, maybe some ineffective military response. Instead, within minutes, their scattered armed forces displayed a level of coordination we hadn't thought possible without quantum networking. Their primitive projectile weapons, which we had dismissed as harmless, turned out to be far more numerous than our scans had indicated. And apparently they had been hiding their more advanced weapons in underground bunkers our sensors couldn't penetrate. Commander Senna Brightclaw's flagship was the first to learn about something called a railgun. The humans had somehow managed to accelerate their primitive metal projectiles to velocities that could penetrate our standard shields. The ship's last transmission was, "Wait, how did they? Oh no." Science Officer Lunar Vex's analysis of their response time proved even more disturbing. "They were ready for us," she reported, her membrane paling with concern. "Those entertainment videos about alien invasions? They weren't just fiction, they were preparation. They had contingency plans. They had been preparing for extraterrestrial contact for over a century. Our attempts to establish control over their communication networks backfired spectacularly. Not only did they have backup systems we hadn't detected, but they also turned our own cyber attacks against us. A team of what they call hackers, apparently civilians with no military training, managed to infiltrate 3 of our destroyers' navigation systems using code that looked like it was written by a child. The ships are now playing something called Never Gonna Give You Up on all frequencies. We cannot make it stop." The humans' response to our ground forces was equally baffling. When we landed troops in their urban centers, expecting to meet minimal resistance, we instead found ourselves facing not just military personnel, but armed civilians. These people had personal weapons. Who gives civilians access to firearms? What kind of society functions like that? In what I can only describe as a tactical nightmare, our forces in the region they call Texas reported being attacked by civilians riding in lifted pickup trucks, armed with something called a 50 cal. I had to look up what that meant. How is that legal? Why would anyone need a gun that big? Their military response has been equally perplexing. Instead of trying to match our technology, they're using their primitive tools in ways we never anticipated. They've been adapting their cellular networks to coordinate attacks, using commercial drones to scout our positions, and modifying their simple projectile weapons with devastating effect. Perhaps most alarming was the incident in the region designated as Florida. Our troops reported being attacked by local civilians who threw live reptiles at them. Live reptiles. The creatures, apparently called alligators, caused massive panic among our forces. Who throws apex predators as weapons? What is wrong with these people? Admiral Zenith Starweaver's last status report before his command center was overwhelmed simply read, "These humans are insane. They're not fighting like a civilization should. They're fighting like they have nothing to lose and everything to gain." The most disturbing development came when we intercepted their global communications. Instead of panicking or surrendering, humans across their planet are sharing tactical information, coordinating resistance efforts, and making memes about us. They're turning our invasion into something they call viral content. Our troops' failures are being set to music and shared across their information networks. It's demoralizing. One of our captured officers reported that his human interrogators spent more time asking about our ship's social media potential than our military capabilities. They wanted to know if our vessels would make good TikTok content. I must also report that we've lost contact with our forward base in the region they call Australia. The last transmission mentioned something about wildlife. I don't want to know what that means. Science Officer Lunar Vex has submitted her preliminary analysis. We didn't invade a planet of primitive beings. We invaded a planet of battle-tested survivors who have spent their entire history fighting each other and their environment. They were not unprepared for us. We were unprepared for them. Request immediate reinforcements and tactical reassessment. These humans are not what we thought they were. They're worse. They're creative. End emergency update Grand Observer Raxon Prel. Personal note, I'm beginning to think that Galactic Excellence in Expansion Award might be out of reach. Currently accepting recommendations for good hiding places in the Lesser Magellanic Cloud urgent transmission. From Science Officer Lunar Vex. Superseding Authority Grand Observer Raxon Prel currently indisposed. Status critical revelation. To the Orient High Command. I am submitting this report in place of Grand Observer Raxon Prel, who is currently having what humans would call a nervous breakdown after reviewing our latest intelligence findings. He has locked himself in his quarters, muttering something about how we have awakened a sleeping giant. I fear he might be right. Our initial scans of human military capability were, to put it mildly, catastrophically incomplete. We focused on their current weapons and completely missed the bigger picture. What we are facing is not just a species with inferior technology, we are facing a species that has mastered the art of killing each other in ways that defy rational thought. Let me explain what we have discovered. These humans have fought not one, but two planet-wide wars in just the last century. They called them world wars, and the statistics are mind-numbing. The second one involved over 70 million combatants. They call this total war the complete mobilization of every aspect of their society toward the war effort. Their civilian factories can switch to military production in weeks. But that's not the terrifying part. During our research, we discovered something that made Admiral Zenith Starweaver physically ill. The humans have weapons that can split atoms. They call them nuclear weapons, and they have already used them. Twice. On themselves. Let that sink in. They developed the power to split atoms, and their first thought was to weaponize it. Then they used these weapons on their own species. And then, this is the truly insane part, they built thousands more. When Commander Senna Brightclaw learned about something called the Cold War, she started laughing hysterically. Apparently, humans spent decades pointing these nuclear weapons at each other, operating under a principle they called mad mutually assured destruction. They maintained peace by threatening to destroy everything. What kind of logic is that? Their history of warfare goes beyond conventional battles. They have perfected something called guerrilla warfare. The concept is simple yet brilliant: small groups of fighters wearing no uniforms, blending with civilians, striking without warning, and disappearing. Our tactical analysts are still trying to figure out how to fight an enemy that refuses to stand still and fight properly. We intercepted their historical records and found endless examples of smaller forces defeating larger, better-equipped armies using these tactics. One human nation called Vietnam apparently perfected this art, building entire networks of underground tunnels. When I showed this to our tunnel warfare specialist, he resigned on the spot. Their innovation in warfare is unprecedented. They have weapons specifically designed to set the air on fire. They developed gases that can kill by touch. They figured out how to turn their own diseases into weapons. Thank the cosmic core we didn't try biological warfare. They have experience with that too. One of our cultural analysts made a disturbing observation: humans have developed more ways to kill each other than any species we have ever encountered. They have weapons for every possible scenario. They kill at close range, long range, and ranges we didn't even know existed. They kill on land, at sea, in the air, and now in space. They have weapons that can kill now, kill later, or make the land uninhabitable for generations. Most terrifying of all, they consider these weapons old technology. We found their military training manuals. They have specific doctrines for fighting enemies with superior technology. They have been actively preparing for us, or someone like us, for generations. Every piece of science fiction about alien invasions wasn't entertainment, it was a thought experiment. They have been gaming out scenarios for extraterrestrial war since before they had electricity. The humans have a concept called asymmetric warfare. It means using unexpected tactics to defeat a superior force. One of their military leaders, dead for centuries, wrote that all warfare is based on deception. They are masters of deception. Those primitive defenses we detected? Decoys. Those outdated weapons? Backup systems. That fractured global politics? It vanished the moment we appeared. Recent intelligence suggests they have weapons platforms hidden in their planet's oceans. inside the oceans. They call them submarines, and they carry enough firepower to annihilate entire continents. They have been playing a game of hide and seek with these weapons for over half a century. But perhaps the most chilling discovery was found in their historical archives. Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When faced with superior forces, they don't give up, they innovate. They adapt. They overcome. And they do it faster than any species we have ever studied. The humans have another concept that our linguists just translated. They call it winning ugly. It means achieving victory by any means necessary, regardless of conventional tactics or accepted methods. Their entire species seems to excel at this. Recommendation: immediate withdrawal of all forces. We are not fighting a primitive species. We are not even fighting a modern species. We are fighting a species that has turned warfare into an art form, that has survived its own attempts at self-destruction, and that seems to actually enjoy finding new ways to achieve victory against superior forces. Final note: our psychological warfare division just intercepted something humans call memes about our invasion. They are making jokes about us. They are turning our defeat into entertainment. This level of psychological warfare is beyond our comprehension. End report. Science Officer Lunar Vex. Personal note: I have already submitted my resignation. I suggest the High Command does the same. These humans don't just practice warfare, they perfect it. And now we have given them a common enemy to unite against. May the Cosmic Core have mercy on us all. Scattered reports from various Orient command centers, compiled by Emergency Response Team Alpha. Time period lasts 72 Earth hours. A warning: content may be disturbing. Report 1, North American Theater. Commander Senna Brightclaw reporting from emergency bunker. Situation critical. Humans have developed countermeasures for our energy shields using something they call electromagnetic pulse weapons. They knocked out our advanced systems with technology they built in their garages. Their solution to fighting our superior technology was to simply turn it off. Tactical officer notes: they are using our own disabled ships as cover to advance. The humans have a term for this. They call it adding insult to injury. Report 2, European Command Center. Our psychological warfare tactics have completely backfired. We tried to demoralize them by broadcasting their casualties. They responded by turning our broadcasts into something called a highlight reel set to their war music. The song Fortunate Son now triggers panic attacks among our troops. Intelligence update: they have turned our invasion into what they call a gender reveal party meme. I do not understand the reference, but our morale officers are reporting mass confusion and existential dread. Report 3, Asian Operations Hub. Major defeat in region called Japan. Local defenders adapted their ancient martial arts to combat our powered armor. They are calling their new fighting style Mekajitsu. Our troops are now afraid to engage in close combat after multiple incidents of having their advanced armor used against them by civilians who watched a lot of anime. Field report: they have started painting scary faces on their combat vehicles. They call them waifu art. The psychological impact is devastating. Report 4, South American Division. Complete loss of control in what they call Brazilian territory. Local fighters have adapted their street fighting techniques to combat our forces. They call it favela warfare. We have lost 3 elite units to what they describe as soccer hooligans using improvised tactics. Tactical analysis: they are fighting with a style that cannot be predicted because they make it up as they go. Standard combat algorithms are useless. Report 5, African Theater Command. Massive defeat in multiple regions. Local warriors have combined traditional battle tactics with modern technology in ways our combat computers cannot process. They are using ancient hunting techniques to track our stealth units. One tribe has successfully tamed local wildlife to detect our cloaked soldiers. Field commander note: they sing songs while they fight. The songs are now triggering post-traumatic stress responses in our veterans. Report 6, Australian Operations. Transmission corrupted. Only recovered fragment. Everything here is lethal. The wildlife, the people. Even their sports are combat training in disguise. They are using something called cricket bats as weapons. The local special forces ride in vehicles they call utes while playing something called death metal Send Help. Report 7, Naval Theater Operations. Critical failure in all oceanic operations. Humans have weaponized their whales and dolphins against our submarines. They are using creatures called orcas to hunt our underwater units. Most disturbing development, their surfers are using our energy waves to catch sick rides, while dropping explosives on our ships. Maritime Command, they have adapted their fishing boats into weapon platforms. Even their pleasure craft are now threats. Nothing in the water is safe. Report 8 Orbital Command Station. Humans have begun launching what they call garbage disposal satellites into orbit. These seemingly harmless cleanup devices are collecting space debris and turning it into kinetic weapons against our fleet. They are literally weaponizing their own space trash. Space traffic control, they have started playing something called Space Invaders music over our command frequencies. The psychological impact is severe. Report 9 Cyber Warfare Division. Complete systems failure across all networks. Humans have introduced something they call memes into our communication systems. Our AI cannot process their dad jokes. They have compromised our quantum computers with what they call shitposting. Tech support note, they crashed our most advanced systems by spamming them with pictures of small animals they call cats. Our processors cannot handle the concept of cuteness as a weapon. Report 10 Special Operations Analysis. Disturbing pattern identified in human combat behavior. They do not follow any predictable doctrine. Each defeat makes them more innovative. They adapt faster than our combat algorithms can analyze. Most concerning observation, they appear to be enjoying themselves. Psychological profile, their ability to find humor in combat situations defies all known military psychology. They have turned our invasion into what they call entertainment content. Final assessment, Emergency Response Team Alpha. The turning point of this conflict cannot be traced to a single battle or engagement. Rather, it was our fundamental misunderstanding of human nature that doomed our campaign. We expected them to respond to our superior technology with fear. Instead, they responded with innovation, adaptation, and most disturbingly, enthusiasm. Key observations. Humans do not recognize technological superiority as an insurmountable advantage. Their fractured nature makes them impossible to defeat as a whole. They treat warfare as both an art and a science. Their ability to find humor in combat gives them psychological resilience. They adapt faster than our advanced systems can analyze. Their weapons development philosophy appears to be, if it works, it works. Most critical discovery, humans do not want to just survive our invasion. They want to win, and they want to make sure everyone in the galaxy knows they won. They are not fighting for mere survival, they are fighting for what they call bragging rights. Personal note from compiler, I have begun studying human meditation techniques. Our species will need therapeutic help after this experience. Also, I cannot stop humming something called Fortunate Son. Send medical assistance. Final battle report. From Admiral Zenith Starweaver. Location, Emergency Command Vessel Last Hope. Status, total defeat imminent. To whoever in the High Command is still reading these reports. This will likely be my final transmission as Admiral of the Earth Invasion Fleet, or what remains of it. I feel compelled to document our last attempts at salvaging this catastrophic mission, if only to serve as a warning to future generations. Our final strategic meeting was interrupted by something humans call a Rick-roll broadcast across all our communications channels. Science Officer Lunar Vex has been humming the tune for 3 days straight. We had to sedate her. Nevertheless, we formulated what we believed to be a brilliant last-ditch strategy. We would concentrate all our remaining forces for one massive, overwhelming strike, the target their largest military installation. Our intelligence suggested it was something called Area 51. The humans seemed surprisingly eager to let us approach it, too eager, as we soon discovered. The entire facility was a trap, filled with what they call conspiracy theorists who had been waiting their entire lives for this moment. Our troops were overwhelmed by civilians wearing aluminum foil hats and carrying signs saying, "I told you so." Grand Observer Raxon Prell, in his last moments of lucidity, authorized the deployment of our planet cracker weapon. The humans intercepted our communications and responded by broadcasting something called Independence Day on all frequencies. They had literally made a movie about defeating this exact weapon. They had a plan ready. a plan from a movie, and it worked. Our attempts to gain orbital superiority were thwarted by a hastily assembled human space force consisting of modified civilian spacecraft. They call them space cowboys. These improvised fighters are piloted by beings who call themselves NASCAR drivers and bull riders. Their maneuvers defy both physics and sanity. We tried to establish a defensive position in what humans call international waters. The humans responded by activating something they call pirates. Apparently, they keep pirates around just for situations like this. Pirates. In space-capable vessels. Our last attempt at psychological warfare backfired spectacularly. We broadcast images of our most terrifying biological weapons. The humans responded with pictures of something called Australian wildlife. Our xenobiologists surrendered immediately. Most humiliating was our final ground battle. We deployed our elite shock troops, the pride of the Orion military, against what we thought was a weak point in their defenses. It turned out to be something called a paintball field. The humans had been practicing urban combat scenarios as a recreational activity. Our troops were outmaneuvered by children who had been playing war games for fun. The humans have begun offering our troops something called citizenship if they defect. Many have accepted, attracted by the concept of weekends and something called pizza. Our warrior culture never prepared us for the seductive power of recreational time and circular food. Our retreat preparations have been complicated by the humans' insistence on documenting everything. They have attached recording devices to our disabled ships for the views. They are turning our defeat into something called a documentary series. Several of our commanders have been offered what they call book deals. Current status of our forces. Space fleet, mostly converted into orbital entertainment platforms. Ground forces 60% captured, 30% defected, 10% hiding in something called Florida. Cyber warfare division addicted to human cat videos. Advanced AI systems having existential crisis after discovering human memes. Command structure compromised by something called social media influence. The humans have offered terms for our surrender. They are surprisingly reasonable, requiring only that we 1. Participate in something called a press conference. 2. Appear on multiple talk shows. 3. Allow them to turn our invasion into something called a Netflix series. 4. Share our technology for something they call clean energy. 5. Teach them how to make our version of space tacos. Most disturbing of all, they want to establish diplomatic relations, not because they fear us, but because they think we are interesting. They want to learn about our culture, while simultaneously reminding us how thoroughly they defeated us. They call this making friends. Preparations for retreat. All remaining ships are being painted with surrender messages visible from orbit. Troops are being issued guides on human customs and something called social media etiquette. Command staff are taking crash courses in human diplomatic protocols and meme culture. Our advanced AI is being reformatted after attempting to understand human sarcasm. Final recommendations to High Command. 1. Never invade Earth. 2. Never threaten Earth. 3. Never underestimate Earth. 4. Consider changing our species name to avoid future embarrassment. 5. Begin research into this pizza thing immediately. Personal addendum. I have accepted a position as a consultant for something they call Hollywood. They want to make something called a movie about our invasion. They are calling it Earth 1. Alien 0. The humans have a disturbing talent for monetizing their victories. End final report, Admiral Zenith Starweaver. Personal note: I am keeping this Netflix subscription after we leave. Also, these memes are starting to make sense. Send help. Official declaration of mission failure. Submitted to Orion High Command. From Joint Survivors Council. Classification required reading for all spacefaring species. To the esteemed High Command and all future invasion forces. Let this report serve as both our formal surrender and a warning to any species foolish enough to consider Earth a viable conquest target. We, the remaining leadership of the Earth invasion force, hereby admit complete and total defeat at the hands of what we incorrectly termed a primitive species. Our failure was not due to any single tactical error, but rather a fundamental misunderstanding of what humans are. We thought their technological inferiority made them weak. We were wrong. So very, very wrong. Consider this: they turned our defeat into a global celebration they call Independence Day 2 Electric Boogaloo. They are already selling merchandise of our retreat. Merchandise of our retreat. Key findings for future reference. 1. Technological superiority is meaningless. When we disabled their advanced technology, they simply reverted to older methods. When we jammed their communications, they used something called smoke signals. They adapted carrier pigeons to transmit military intelligence. Birds. They weaponized birds against our quantum communications. 2. Human innovation defies logic. They turned our own capture pods into something called food trucks. Several of our troops defected after tasting something called a fusion taco. They transformed our plasma rifles into what they called gender reveal party devices. We still do not understand this concept, but it terrifies us. 3. Human psychology is incomprehensible. They not only accepted the challenge of fighting a superior force, they enjoyed it. They have turned their victory over us into something called a national holiday. They are already producing educational materials about the great alien embarrassment of 2024. 4. Warning signs we missed. Their entertainment predicted almost every strategy we used. Their children practice combat tactics in something called video games. Their civilian population has more weapons than some planetary defense forces. They regularly survive their own attempts at self-destruction. They invented thousands of ways to make their food spicy. Spicy. They weaponized flavor. Recommendations for other species. Do not attempt to invade Earth. This cannot be stressed enough. They are not primitive. They are not defenseless. They are simply waiting for someone to give them a reason to unite and innovate. If you must interact with humans, we recommend the following. Bring trade goods, especially something called coffee. Express interest in their pet animals. Compliment their memes. Never mention our invasion. They have turned it into something called a running joke. Final observations. The humans have a saying: play stupid games, win stupid prizes. We played the stupidest game of all. We underestimated them. Our prize? Eternal recognition as the species that united Earth's nations through sheer incompetence. They are now using our invasion as a plot for multiple movie franchises. Our defeat will be dramatized, romanticized, and monetized for generations to come. They have turned our greatest military disaster into their greatest entertainment success. Most ironically, they are now offering to help us improve our technology. They call it cultural exchange. We call it the ultimate humiliation. Closing remarks. To any species discovering Earth in the future, if you see a primitive-looking planet with outdated technology, spinning weapons, and a species that seems to be constantly fighting itself, turn your ships around. That is not weakness you are detecting. That is humanity practicing. End final report. Personal note: I have been informed that this report will be included in something called a TED Talk about the importance of proper threat assessment. The humans are turning our tactical analysis into motivational speaking. There is no bottom to this pit of humiliation. Signed, the former leadership of the Earth Invasion Force. Currently appearing on human late-night television shows.